I fired shotgun in past. Grass tells murder trial. A Supergrass at the centre of a triple gangland killing yesterday admitted he'd fired a shotgun before. Police informant Darren Nichols told defending barrister Graham Parkins at the Old Bailey that he did have knowledge of using such a weapon. Drug barons Tony Tucker, Pat Tate and Craig Wolf were blasted to death with a pump-action shotgun as they sat in their Range Rover in a deserted country lane in the quiet Essex village of Retton. The trio had been lured to the farm track on December 6, 1995 with the promise of a large cocaine deal, unaware that an ambush had been laid for them. Tate of Basildon and Tucker of Fobbin and Rolfe of Grays had earlier been outraged by poor quality cannabis supplied by Michael Steele, who was jointly accused of the triple murders, along with Jack Wilmes. Both deny the charges. Nichols is alleged to have driven the two men away from the murder scene. Under cross-examination from Mr. Parkins, Nichols admitted to the jury to firing a shotgun on an earlier occasion. Mr. Parkins asked Nichols if he had smelled anything unusual on accused killer Jack Wilmes, like the smell of a discharged gun, when he got back into the getaway vehicle. Nichols replied, "I don't know what a discharged cartridge smells like." Mr. Parkins said, "Have you ever fired a shotgun before, Mr. Nichols?" Nichols replied, "Yes, I have." The court earlier heard Nichols undergo a fifth day of grilling by Mr. Parkins, who was representing Michael Steele. He accused the police informant of not being in the place he said he was when he received an alleged call from Wilmes to pick him up at the murder scene. Mr. Parkins asked Nichols, "You didn't hear the noise that sounded like a number of shotgun cartridges going off?" Nichols said, "No." Mr. Parkins said, "Nothing to indicate to you that a gun was being discharged in that location?" Nichols repeated, "No." Mr. Parkins added, "Were you in fact travelling in the general direction of Basildon at that time?" Nichols said, "No, I was in the road at Retton waiting for the call." Mr. Parkins said, "Are you sure?" Nichols said yes. Nichols told the court he'd received 2 calls on his mobile phone in short succession just before 7 p.m, both of which were from Wilmes' mobile. Mr. Parkins said, "These 2 calls were served by a site at Christopher Martin Road, Basildon. I ask again, were you in fact not where you claim to be, not in Meadow Road, but driving from the scene in the general direction of Basildon?" Nichols replied, "No, I was in Meadow Road." Mr. Parkins had earlier accused Nichols of playing a part in the murders. He said, "Were you in reality that night part of a meeting with Patrick Tate?" Nichols replied, "No." The trial continues. Supergrass denies murder involvement. The Supergrass in the trial of 2 alleged drug dealers accused of a triple gangland murder at Retton denied telling a pack of lies to cover his own involvement in the crime this week. The informant claims he unknowingly drove one of the killers of Patrick Tate, Craig Wolf and Tony Tucker to a secluded country lane in Retton, where the execution took place. The informant claims he drove Wilmes to the spot and Steele followed. The Old Bailey jury were told the killers met up with the Range Rover at the Halfway House pub on the A127. Steele's QC, Mr. Graham Parkins, told him, "Were you in reality meeting Pat Tate with other men at the Fortune of War?" The informant gave a series of interviews with police, but denied he was prompted by detectives. The informant also said he dropped off Wilmes at the end of Workhouse Lane and sat for 5 minutes in the car park of the nearby Wheatsheaf pub, and then for a couple of more minutes in Meadow Road. And this was challenged by Mr. Parkin, who said mobile phone records proved he was elsewhere. The informant said he did not hear the shotgun being fired in the country lane. Wilmes returned to the car, and a couple of minutes later Steele got in. "I saw something like blood on Jack's gloves," the informant said. He insisted, "I was there, and I saw it." Mr. Parkins replied, "I'll put it to you firmly, neither Steele or Wilmes were there." The hearing continues. Police tactics are questioned in court. The detective responsible for grilling a Supergrass at the centre of a triple gangland murder trial has been quizzed in court about his interviewing methods. Detective Constable Christopher Winston, who interviewed police informant Darren Nichols over a number of months, was accused of helping him, prompting him and suggesting things that he hadn't said. The claim was made by Graham Parkins QC, who was defending Michael Steele, one of the men accused of the murders. Mr. Parkins told the court that during one taped interview, the tape was turned off for 20 minutes while Nichols went to the toilet. When he returned, his solicitor confirmed there had been no discussion of tape, but the legal representative had also been out of the room making telephone calls during the vital minutes. Mr. Parkins repeatedly asked DC Winston if Nichols had ever been questioned off tape. DC Winston replied, "Absolutely not." Then Worm's defence, David Letterman QC, continued the barrage of questions when he asked DC Winston if Nichols had ever tried to find out if he would get a reduced sentence for testifying. DC Winston admitted Nichols had asked, but he said he'd never answered him. The trial continues. Court story of a gang love cheat. An alleged hitman charged with a triple gangland killing has been accused of sleeping with one of his victim's girlfriends. Police informer Darren Nichols told an Old Bailey jury he believed 54-year-old Michael Steele and pretty blonde Sarah Saunders were lovers, while her partner Pat Tate languished in prison. The court also heard Steele's handing out monthly payments to Sarah, mother of Tate's young son. Steele's defence, Graham Parkins QC, asked Nichols, "What was your opinion of the relationship between Mr. Steele and Sarah Saunders?" "I formed the opinion they were having an affair. It was just different things which made me think that way. It was also from what Mr. Steele had told me." The court heard Steele had helped Sarah Saunders move out of Tate's home in Gordon Road, Basildon, after the couple split in November 1995. He used to give Sarah a set amount of money each month. Mr. Parkins said, "Used to issue money to Tate's partner, Sarah Saunders, to live on." Nichols replied, "Yes." Nichols revealed he'd kept in contact with bodybuilder Tate, who he'd first met in prison, and had paid a visit to him in hospital when the villain was recovering from a previous shooting incident. Nichols said, "He said he can get me anything, drugs of all sorts." He added, "But he was as different in hospital. He was a nasty git. There was a woman there he was being a bit of a bully to. He was being very loud. I never saw him after that." The court heard Nichols, who served a term in prison for his part in a counterfeit money ring, had also sold stolen cigarette coupons. Under cross-examination, Nichols said he'd been in possession of more than 150,000 coupons. Mr. Letterman asked Nichols, "Did you ever think about what was honest and dishonest?" Nichols replied, "Not particularly." The trial continues.